Welcome back, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here for episode 2 of our Cyber Resiliency Explainer series. Today, we're seriously upgrading our defensive playbook. We're mapping out the journey from fragile legacy identity protections and taking a giant, much-needed leap toward a mature, zero-trust architecture. Because let's face it, identity is the new perimeter, and hardening it is arguably the most impactful thing you can do for your security posture right now. But before we get into the weeds, I want you to imagine your corporate network as a high-security building. You've got this massive, seemingly impenetrable front door, but you really have to ask yourself, is that secure front door actually leaving your network wide open? We so often assume that just flipping the switch on basic multi-factor authentication, good old MFA, is enough to keep the bad guys out. But the reality, hackers are bypassing SMS codes in literally minutes today. That old padlock just isn't cutting it anymore against modern threat actors. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start at the identity front door, then look at defeating MFA fatigue, containing the blast radius, and preventative maintenance. After that, we'll walk through the PAM maturity journey, and finally arrive at zero standing privileges. Section 1. The identity front door. It all starts at the perimeter. Authentication is the very first barrier any attacker faces when they're trying to breach your systems. So let's compare our options using some great data from Knox Cloud. First, you have what we'll call the flimsy padlock. That's your SMS codes and basic authenticator apps. Why are they flimsy? Well, SMS is notoriously vulnerable to SIM swap attacks, and basic apps easily fall prey to adversary-in-the-middle attacks. That's where a user gets tricked into typing their credentials into a fake proxy login page, and the attacker just captures the session cookie in real time. Boom, they're in. Now, contrast that with the cryptographic key, FIDO2 security keys. These are phishing-resistant by design. The physical hardware key cryptographically binds to the legitimate domain. So if a user accidentally lands on one of those fake Evil Gwing-style phishing kits, the cryptographic handshake simply fails. It stops the attack dead in its tracks. It's really the difference between hoping your user spots a fake domain and relying on hard math to just do the work for them. Moving right along to Section 2, defeating MFA fatigue. Because if they can't steal the code, they'll try to wear you down. Modern hacking is incredibly psychological. Even when attackers realize they can't easily steal a cryptographic code, they aren't just going to pack up and go home. Hawk's Hunt defines MFA fatigue, which you might also hear called MFA bombing, as a cyber threat where attackers repeatedly attempt to authenticate an account using secondary methods like push notifications, simply to exhaust the user. Paint this picture in your head. It's 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. A user's phone is buzzing non-stop on their nightstand with Microsoft or Google login requests. In a groggy, half-asleep state of total annoyance, they just tap approve to make the buzzing stop so they can sleep. And just like that, the attacker has the keys. To actually combat this specific threat, let's look at Knox Cloud's concrete 2026 MFA recommendations. For every single standard user in your organization, the absolute baseline has to be an authenticator app with a passkey and number matching enabled. Number matching forces the user to type a 2-digit code shown on their computer screen into their phone. That simple step completely breaks that blind 2 a.m. approve reflex. But what about admins, finance staff, and executives? They require 2 physical FIDO2 keys each, a primary and a backup, with absolutely zero SMS fallback allowed, no exceptions. And for those hypercritical break glass network accounts, the recommendation is 2 FIDO2 keys literally locked away in a physical safe. Section 3, containing the blast radius. So what happens when they make it into the hallways? Look, if the front door does fail, we have to stop a small kitchen fire from burning down the entire building. To stop lateral movement, we rely on the principle of least privilege, or PoLP. OSP defines this as granting a user, process, or program only the absolute minimum level of access or permissions necessary to perform its intended function. This directly reduces the attack surface and limits the blast radius. Think of PoLP as a fire break in a dense forest. If a standard user's laptop gets compromised by a phishing attack, PoLP ensures the attacker only gets access to what that specific user could see. It ensures that a compromised standard account doesn't accidentally hand the attackers the keys to the entire corporate kingdom. And if you lack those fire breaks, the consequences are severe. As Networks reports, whoever controls the domain controls the network. A domain compromise exposes every resource that trusts Active Directory for identity decisions. Imagine your entire network map literally catching on fire. A threat actor who reaches domain admin level can issue forged Kerberos tickets, push malicious group policy to every single workstation, and just turn off your security tooling. And you know why this usually happens? Privilege debt. It's those old service accounts added to admin groups for a quick fix 5 years ago and never removed. Auditing your Active Directory group memberships is absolutely vital to clearing out this silent, toxic, privilege debt before somebody exploits it. Section 4, Preventative Maintenance. Securing the baseline. We really have to secure the baseline infrastructure that actually supports all of these critical identity decisions. According to the NIST Special Publication 840 Revision 4, patch management isn't just some annoying IT chore, it is critical preventative maintenance for technology. Active Directory domain services are what we call Tier 0 assets. They're your core control plane. You must treat them with an explicit, rigorous patch service level agreement. Recent vulnerabilities have shown us time and again that unpatched domain controllers can instantly turn a minor, low-level foothold into a devastating, full domain compromise. Section 5. The PAM Maturity Journey. Let's move to the vault. So let's see how this builds when we're dealing with our most highly privileged, dangerous access. Manage Engine maps out Privileged Access Management, or PAM, across 3 distinct maturity phases. Step 1 is the essential phase. That's where you establish your basic access controls and just get a solid handle on your inventory. Step 2 is the evolutionary phase, where organizations start heavily exploring and actually implementing zero-trust access controls. And finally, we reach Step 3, the enhanced phase. This is where all the pieces come together to achieve the absolute holy grail of identity security, zero standing privileges. Which brings us perfectly to our final section, Section 6, Zero Standing Privileges. Let's break this concept down because it's a real game changer. Zero standing privileges is achieved through just-in-time, or JIT access. Instead of having an administrator account just sitting there, always on, passively waiting to be hijacked, you share temporary, time-bound access to those privileged accounts only when they are actively needed. The logic here is beautifully simple. If access only exists for the exact 30-minute window it's needed to, say, run a patch, there is literally nothing for an attacker to steal when the system is dormant. The attack surface shrinks to 0 for that account, the vast majority of the time. And this brilliantly illustrates how we actually make that happen, using advanced controls mapped out by Manage Engine. On the governance, risk, and compliance side, we're talking about real-time risk assessments and trust scores, evaluating every single request that comes in. For Zero Trust, you need policy-based access, that crucial just-in-time privilege elevation we just talked about, and Zero Trust network access. And finally, technical enablement. This ensures policies are deeply embedded into your CI/CD pipelines and handled via robotic process automation. By relying heavily on automation, you effectively weed out the manual human errors that attackers so frequently exploit. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative question to really think about. Do you truly know who holds privileged access in your network right now, or is privilege debt silently waiting to be exploited? Taking the step from basic MFA to FIDO2, rigorously auditing your Active Directory, and pushing hard towards zero standing privileges, that is your roadmap to surviving modern threats. Thanks so much for joining me today. Now go check those permissions.